Have you ever wished life came with an X-ray machine?
Oh, an X-ray machine for life. That would be amazing.
Right. Think about it. You pour your absolute heart into something for years. Maybe it's a career path you've just been grinding at, or, a relationship you've nurtured.
Or even a personal goal you've sacrificed literally everything for.
Exactly. You put in the time. But because there's no X-ray machine to actually show you the internal progress you're making,
Mm.
you look around one day and feel like you have absolutely nothing to show for it.
Yeah, and meanwhile, everyone else around you seems to be effortlessly thriving.
It's that crushing feeling of, I did everything right, I followed the rules, so where is my reward?
It's so universal. We all feel that at some point.
We really do. And today's deep dive is going to explore exactly that feeling, but we're looking at it through a really fascinating lens. We're diving into a 2018 philosophical text by an author named Swefeng.
Yes.
It's titled The Ancestor of Buddha's Revelation.
It is a profound piece of writing. It really gets to the core of how we measure our own self-worth.
It really does.
Essentially, we're looking at a dialogue. On one side, you have this highly dedicated spiritual practitioner who's experiencing a massive, just a total existential crisis of faith.
A complete breakdown.
Exactly. And on the other side, you have the supreme ancestor of Buddha. And what unfolds between them is a complete deconstruction of what it actually means to make progress in life.
And what I appreciate about this text, like right off the bat, is that the practitioner is just brutally honest.
Oh, they hold nothing back.
Right. They don't sugarcoat their frustration at all. They lay out their grievance right away. They say, look, I have spent over 20 years doing all the right things.
20 years. That is a long time to be waiting for a payoff.
Seriously. They've been self-improving, self-refining. The text talks about them deliberately applying this unconventional thinking to build a celestial consciousness instead of just operating on basic animal or human instincts.
Right. Actively choosing the harder path.
Yeah, they've practiced selfless dedication. They've done unconditional giving.
Yeah.
2 whole decades of this.
Which is a staggering commitment, really. When you actually break down what 20 years means, that's over 7,000 days of consciously trying to separate from worldly attachments.
7,000 days. Wow.
Yeah. Trying to calm the mind, maintain integrity, operate from a place of pure selflessness. For anyone putting in that level of rigorous work, you would naturally expect, some kind of profound enlightenment.
Or at least some peace.
Right. At the very least, a sense of unshakable peace.
But here is the missing return on investment. The practitioner looks at their life after 20 years and basically says, I don't have a house, I don't have a car, I have no money, no power, no status.
The worldly checklist is totally empty.
Empty. And beautifully, they even complain that they don't have the supernatural powers they expected from all this intense spiritual work.
That part always gets me. The expectation of literal magic powers.
I know, it's so honest. Instead, their wealthy neighbors are literally laughing at them. They are looking at this spiritual ledger and seeing a massive negative balance.
Yeah, they feel completely cheated.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to me, this feels exactly like modern hustle culture, just dressed up in spiritual robes.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like someone grinding 80 hours a week for 20 years at a startup, expecting the corner office and the sports car when the company finally goes public. But in this case, the practitioner was expecting, spiritual superpowers
Yeah.
and boundless wealth.
They wanted the cosmic payout.
Exactly. Did this person just completely misunderstand the assignment? Or is the path to Tao actually just fundamentally unfair?
Well, that perceived unfairness is the central tension of the whole text, and the Buddha's response is incredibly grounded. Notice that the Buddha doesn't tell the practitioner they are on the wrong path.
Right. He doesn't say they messed up the meditation or anything.
Exactly. The effort, the self-refinement, the daily discipline, that was all entirely correct. The problem, the Buddha explains, is that the practitioner's definition of gaining is entirely miscalibrated.
Miscalibrated. I like that.
Yeah. Throughout this dialogue, we see the text radically redefine what success and progress actually look like. It shifts the focus from what we can hold in our hands or, put in a bank account to the things we often fail to even notice we possess.
So let's look at exactly how the Buddha addresses that miscalibration. Because instead of looking at what the practitioner lacks, the Buddha points out what they completely failed to realize they already have.
It's a huge reality check.
It really is. The Buddha points out that for the last 20 years, this practitioner has been almost completely free from illness and hasn't encountered any major disasters. And the Buddha actually brings receipts to back this up.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty staggering.
The text cites these massive, sobering numbers to give the practitioner some perspective. It says roughly 800 million people are suffering from illness globally, and 600 million are dying abnormally.
What's fascinating here is the concept of unseen blessings, or what we might call, like, the negative space of our lives.
The negative space.
Yeah. We have to understand why the practitioner feels so empty despite being so safe, and it really comes down to how we are wired as humans. Evolutionarily, human beings are threat detection machines.
Right. Always looking for the saber-toothed tiger.
Exactly. But we're also driven by a dopamine reward system. We are rewarded with a hit of dopamine for acquiring things, food, status, shelter, money. We literally do not get a dopamine hit for not dying today.
That is so true. No one celebrates just waking up normal.
Or for not getting sick this week. Our brains are designed to notice who has a bigger house or who has more power, but we are terrible at noticing the absence of suffering. When your tooth doesn't ache, you don't spend all day celebrating your healthy tooth, you just ignore it.
You completely ignore it. Until it hurts again.
Exactly. The Buddha is pointing out that simply surviving for 2 decades without major tragedy, financial ruin, or physical torment is an extraordinary statistical anomaly.
Wow.
And crucially, the Buddha frames this as a direct result of the practitioner's alignment with their spiritual path.
It is the ultimate invisible return on investment. And it's not just about avoiding the massive headline-making disasters either. The Buddha brings it down to this everyday piece that is so easy to take totally for granted.
Yeah, the small stuff.
Right. The Buddha says, hey, for 20 years you haven't really had insomnia. You sleep soundly. Your mind isn't tormented by annoying, chaotic disturbances.
Which is a huge blessing in itself.
Huge. You aren't lying in bed terrified that thieves or robbers are going to break in and take your stuff. And on top of that, you are surrounded by pure confidants. Friends who don't add drama to your life, but who actually provide unconditional help whenever you need it.
Those everyday miracles, a good night's sleep, a safe home, reliable friends, are profound when you actually stop to measure them against the baseline of human suffering.
Totally.
But the text goes even further. The Buddha also points to the deeper metaphysical milestones that the practitioner has achieved without realizing it. Because of this selfless dedication, the text explains that the practitioner has been gradually repaying generational debt.
Generational debts, okay.
Yeah, ending their secular ties, moving closer to heaven, distancing themselves from hell, and slowly escaping the program of reincarnation entirely.
Okay, hold on. I need to pause you there. Because for anyone listening on their commute right now, phrases like repaying generational debts and escaping the program of reincarnation might sound like we just took a hard left turn into esoteric theology.
That's a fair point, yeah.
For those who aren't, steeped in this specific spiritual framework, what do those concepts actually mean in a practical sense?
That's a great clarification to make. You really don't have to take it literally to understand the psychology behind it. Think of generational debt as inherited trauma or destructive behavioral loops passed down through a family.
Oh, like breaking the cycle.
Precisely.
Yeah.
By spending 20 years refining themselves and choosing selflessness, this practitioner has broken those toxic cycles. They aren't passing that pain on to the next generation.
That makes a lot of sense.
As for escaping the program of reincarnation, in many Eastern philosophies, reincarnation is tied to being trapped in an endless, repetitive cycle of ego-driven suffering and desire.
Making the same mistakes over and over.
Exactly. To escape that program means you have finally stopped repeating the same destructive mistakes. You have achieved a level of liberation where you are no longer a slave to your basic impulses. Those are massive, monumental achievements.
I hear that, and I completely understand the logic. But I have to play devil's advocate for you here, because I can hear the frustration from anyone who has ever been in this practitioner's shoes.
I'm ready.
Logically, yes, breaking a cycle of trauma is amazing. But practically, if my neighbor just bought a yacht while I'm meditating in an empty room, I'm still going to feel like a failure.
Of course. Human ego is loud.
Isn't this Buddha's response just a form of spiritual gaslighting? It sounds a lot like telling a broke person who just lost their job, hey, cheer up, at least you have your health and a good night's sleep.
Right, toxic positivity.
Yeah. Is the Buddha just moving the goalposts because the practitioner didn't get the money and the magic powers they originally wanted?
It's a very natural pushback, but within the mechanics of the text, it's not gaslighting. Gaslighting implies deception. The Buddha is trying to correct a fundamental illusion the practitioner is suffering from.
So, changing their perspective, not lying to them.
Exactly. The Buddha is explaining that avoiding disaster is a tangible gain. Achieving a balanced, drama-free life is a gain. The text mentions that once the practitioner's Buddha's eye opens, which we can understand as a profound shift in perception and awareness, they will finally see these unseen blessings as clearly as they see a luxury car.
So they literally just can't see it yet.
Right. It's not about moving the goalposts to make the practitioner feel better about failing. It's about making them realize they were playing the wrong game entirely. The practitioner was playing a game of accumulation, collecting status, money, and magic powers.
The hustle culture game.
Exactly. But the Tao is a game of liberation. In a game of liberation, the less you are weighed down by, the more successful you actually are.
The less you're weighed down by, the more successful you are. Wow. That flips the whole script on hustle culture.
It really does.
But here's the thing. Even when presented with that beautifully logical argument, the practitioner still struggles. And I find this to be the most compelling and relatable part of the entire text, because the emotional reality sets in.
It's hard to just turn off those feelings of inadequacy.
Exactly. The practitioner hears all of this about unseen blessings, and they essentially say, thank you for the teaching, but I still feel empty.
So human.
They admit that when they look at their wealthy neighbors, they still feel like they have zero practical achievements to show for their lives, and they confess they're actually losing the confidence to keep going.
Which is a testament to the psychological realism of this text. I mean, a lesser, more dogmatic text would have the practitioner instantly enlightened after one good speech from the Buddha.
Right, they just say, oh, I'm cured.
But human nature doesn't work like that. Our egos are incredibly stubborn. And I love the Buddha's reaction here. There is no scolding. There is no divine anger.
Just patience.
Yes, the Buddha simply shows deep empathy and understanding for the human condition. To explain why the practitioner feels this way, the Buddha introduces the concept of the temptation maze.
The temptation maze. That is such a fascinating phrase because it implies that the distractions around us aren't just accidental. They are designed to trap us.
Precisely. A maze has dead ends, and it's designed to disorient you. The Buddha is saying that the world is meticulously structured with countless external temptations, wealth, status, comparative success that pull our attention away from our internal progress.
They distract us from what actually matters.
Right. You haven't failed. The Buddha is reassuring them. You're just currently lost in the maze of comparison.
I felt this exact phenomenon just last week.
Oh, yeah.
I was having a perfectly peaceful morning, feeling great about my work, my health was fine, absolutely no disasters, and then I opened LinkedIn.
Oh, the ultimate temptation maze.
Within 5 minutes, I saw 3 people I went to college with announcing these massive promotions and new companies they just sold. And suddenly, my peaceful morning felt completely inadequate.
It ruins everything.
It does. I felt like I was falling behind just because I had the audacity to look at someone else's carefully curated highlight reel. We all live inside that temptation maze every single day through our phones.
It is the perfect modern equivalent. The temptation maze is designed to make you feel lack where there is actually abundance. Your morning was abundant in peace, but the maze convinced you it was lacking in status.
Wow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Buddha's solution to this very modern feeling anxiety is to step outside the human framework entirely. The Buddha tells the practitioner, go look at nature.
Just look at a tree.
Well, basically, because the actual laws of the universe, the mechanics of how real growth happens, they aren't hidden in some esoteric spell book, and they certainly aren't on LinkedIn.
Definitely not on LinkedIn. Yeah.
No, they are displayed openly in the laws of all things and phenomena in the natural world.
So how does the Buddha use nature to cure this deep-seated impatience? Because let's be real, just telling a frustrated human being to wait longer basically never works.
No, it never works, because human beings operate on human timelines. We are obsessed with quarterly earnings, annual reviews, and immediate gratification.
We want the results yesterday.
Exactly. So the Buddha cures the impatience by completely shifting the paradigm to cosmic biological timelines. To do this, the text introduces 2 incredible analogies from nature. The first analogy focuses on a fruit tree.
Okay, walk us through the fruit tree. How does that map onto a 20-year spiritual grind?
The Buddha says, think about the life cycle of a fruit tree. It goes through this entirely invisible internal process first. You have spring budding, then a long growing phase, then it finally flowers, and eventually it produces fruit. The Buddha points out something crucial about the physics of this growth. The actual time of maturity, the time when the fruit is ready, visible, and can be consumed by the world, is incredibly short. But the gestation period, The time of unseen internal growth and structural development is very, very long.
So it's mostly waiting.
Basically, the Buddha looks at this frustrated practitioner and says, "Your 20 years of effort, that isn't a delay. That is simply your gestation period."
That reframing is so powerful. It completely changes the definition of those 20 years. It wasn't 20 years of waiting for a reward. It was 20 years of necessary structural growth.
Exactly.
But the text doesn't stop there.
No, it moves to a second analogy that is even more visceral. The Buddha asks the practitioner to think about a lamb developing inside a ewe's womb.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because when you think about the reality of an unborn lamb, it is stuck in this dark, confined environment as it grows.
Completely isolated.
Yes, it cannot see the outside world. It has absolutely no concept of its own future. It doesn't know what a field of grass is, doesn't even know what its own legs are going to be used for.
It's just entirely in the dark.
Right. It just sits in the dark, using immense amounts of energy just to develop its basic organs.
And that biological reality holds a profound philosophical implication. The lamb in the womb isn't failing because it isn't running in a meadow yet.
Obviously not.
It is doing exactly what it is biologically required to do. It's building the capacity to survive in a reality it cannot yet comprehend. The darkness isn't a punishment, it's a requirement for the development of delicate structures.
A requirement. I love that.
Yeah. Once that lamb is born, as the text says, it is reborn and fulfilled. But again, look at the timeline. The time of fulfillment, the actual event of birth, is a very short threshold. The time spent developing in the dark is long.
So the practitioner is just the lamb.
Exactly. The Buddha tells the practitioner, you are that lamb in the womb. You haven't been born into the next spiritual reality yet. So of course you feel confused. Feeling blind and confused in the dark is totally natural when you are still gestating.
So what does this all mean for the practitioner? To me, it means their core problem wasn't that they failed, and it wasn't even that the universe was unfair.
No, not at all.
The core problem, as the Buddha ultimately diagnoses, is irritability. It is impatience. They are literally a fetus getting angry that they aren't out running in a sunny meadow yet, completely ignoring the biological fact that if they forced themselves out of the womb right now, they wouldn't even survive.
Right.
They need to finish growing their eyes and their legs first.
This raises an important question about how we view our own periods of struggle and stagnation. When we feel stuck in our careers or our personal growth, our default instinct is to assume something is broken.
We think we failed.
We assume we took a wrong turn or that the system is rigged against us, but the Buddha insists that we must trust the power and rules of these procedures. Growth has an architecture. It has a timeline that we do not get to dictate.
We just have to surrender to it.
We have to trust the biological and spiritual timelines of our own development rather than stomping our feet and demanding immediate, visible results before we possess the structural integrity to even handle them.
And that logic, that shift to the biological timeline, is what finally breaks through to the practitioner. We reach the resolution of the text, and the practitioner finally gets it.
It finally clicks.
It does. They say their heart is brightened, they drop the demand for the supernatural powers, and they just stop caring about the wealthy neighbor's status. Instead, they accept that they must continue to develop and grow inside what they beautifully call the big womb of the world.
The big womb of the world. It's a great image.
They commit to striving to eventually be born into that heavenly world, whatever their specific gestation period is actually complete.
It is a total surrender to the process, and you can almost feel the relief in the text. To stop fighting the dark and to realize the dark is simply where the development happens.
That surrender is exactly the core takeaway we want to leave you with today. We all have these periods in our lives where it feels like absolutely nothing is happening.
It feels like you're stuck in mud.
Yeah, you're putting in the work, you're doing everything right, you're avoiding the bad habits, but the external rewards, the money, the recognition, the relationship, they're just not showing up.
The visible rewards.
Exactly. What this text challenges us to do is to completely reframe those waiting periods. What feels like agonizing stagnation or even total failure might literally just be your necessary gestation period.
Just growing your legs in the dark.
Exactly. And those unseen blessings, the quiet peace, the absence of major disaster, your health, the reliable people in your corner, those aren't just runner-up prizes because you didn't get the big promotion. They are the structural nutrients in the womb keeping you alive while you develop.
It requires a profound conscious shift in perspective. You have to train yourself to value the invisible structure you are building over the visible accolades you think you are missing out on. Because if you can't survive the gestation period, you will never survive the birth.
So we want to leave you with one final thought to chew on after this deep dive finishes. Think back to that imaginary X-ray machine we talked about at the very beginning. How we so desperately want clear, visible proof of the progress happening inside us, but the reality is often murky, hidden, and frustratingly slow. If our entire earthly existence, with all of its frustrating delays, its lack of immediate rewards, and its confusing darkness, is quite literally just a gestation period inside the big boom of the world, how does that change the way you view your biggest perceived failure today?
Sure.
Are you actually failing, or are you just stressing out about the dark because you haven't been born yet?